everybody, and welcome to another episode of Film Freaks TV. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm once again doing this solo. Right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and things are a little nuts, as you all know. I mean, if you've been watching the show a good amount, you've been knowing that like a lot of the shows and a lot of the episodes we've been doing have just been solo, either me or Paul. Sometimes Paul has Lenore because he has his roommate. I'm alone right now. So I've just got this little guy, hanging out with me. So maybe I'll keep him over here. So he'll be my buddy for this. So anyway, we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love this movie. If anybody asks me what my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is, I usually say, well, my favorite script is True Romance, and my favorite movie is Pulp Fiction. And I know a lot of people go, oh, Pulp Fiction, that's such a typical, cliche one to say or whatever. But yeah, no, that's still no, actually, I take that back. It just got bumped down to number 2 for directed, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Ouch. So I just totally remember that. Speaking of which, Brad Pitt is in both of True Romance and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this was actually the first time that that Brad Pitt was in a Quentin Tarantino written movie. However, the first time he ever was in a movie that was directed by him was, I guess, Inglourious Basterds. Then later, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm trying to remember things, so if I'm a little off with names and what they've all been in and everything. But as far as I know, this is like the only time Christian Slater's been in one, or Patricia Arquette, or Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman. Let's see. Then we say Brad Pitt was in it. It was in things before. Christopher Walken, Bronson Pinchot. Not the first, not the only time that Samuel L. Jackson's been in one, but this was actually, I'm not sure which one shot first. More Tarantino heads, or whatever you want to call them, Tarantino fanatics, will probably know that answer. But either, Samuel L. Jackson was in, True Romance first, or Pulp Fiction first. Yeah, no, he was in True Romance first. That was 93. Pulp Fiction wasn't until 94. He wasn't in Reservoir Dogs, and that was a big debate because I guess he auditioned for it, and another guy got it, and I've seen the other guy in that part, and I think honestly Samuel L. Jackson would have been a more memorable actor playing that part. He would have done a better job, in my opinion. Samuel L. Jackson in this movie was very short. He didn't have a big part in it. Just like one scene, and it was all about how he eats pussy the whole time. It's literally the whole scene. How he would do that, and then he gets shot, or whatever. If you haven't seen the movie, please go watch it before you listen to this. Like, I'm gonna spoiler the hell out of this movie. So get ready. So then Michael Rappaport, I think he hasn't been in one. I mean, I don't think anybody. Yeah, none of these people. Nope. Sorry, Chris Penn and it's got Tom Sizemore, but I don't think Tom Sizemore has been in Quentin Tarantino movie. But Chris Penn was in Reservoir Dogs as well. So I don't know if he got cast, like if they got cast at the same time for Reservoir Dogs, because from what I've understood, that this movie was made around the same time as Reservoir Dogs, but didn't come out till after. I'm correct, or just about the same time. So I think Tarantino's name had kind of become a thing once they went to Sundance with Reservoir Dogs. But this movie was made. This movie was like written before Tarantino was Tarantino. This is like his first like real script he wrote. This is the movie that he wrote as something that he was like proud of, and then he wrote Natural Born Killers, which if you look at that script of Tarantino's, because Tarantino originally wrote it, then Oliver Stone bought it and then rewrote it, and I believe Tony Scott wanted both Reservoir Dogs and True Romance, but he said he could only sell one, and he really wanted to do Reservoir Dogs himself because it was cheaper and easier to do. This movie would have been harder to do on a very low budget. And I bet he didn't sell True Romance for like a huge amount. I bet he sold it for whatever the scale was. I think that's like what I heard. So I mean, he didn't make a lot of money off of selling this. However, had he, I think he used it to help fund, or at least stay alive while he was trying to fund Reservoir Dogs. So this is one of those tales that you kind of hear, but they don't happen anymore. Like, these are, the tale of the writer who sells off to Hollywood and everything. It doesn't happen that way anymore. You really have to do what Tarantino ended up doing, which was make a big hit. Then Hollywood will come find you. The fact that Hollywood, a person actually got a chance to read True Romance, the director, big-time director at that time, I think, I'm not sure what he had done exactly. I think, I remember Tony Scott had done something like a movie called Revenge or something that Tarantino was a huge fan of. Obviously, Top Gun, I believe, also was made and everything. And so Tarantino was just... speaking of which this is kind of funny. It has nothing to do necessarily with True Romance, but it has something kind of, I guess, because Top Gun was actually talked about in a movie called Sleep With Me, where Tarantino had a bit part with, I believe Eric Stoltz was in that. I don't know if he was in the scene or not, but he has this scene where they're discussing Tom Cruise being it's the epitome of gay, like everybody being gay in that movie. Like, Val Kilmer's character kind of trying to persuade Tom Cruise to go to the gay side. You gotta watch it. It's on YouTube. It's freaking hilarious because it's kind of funny that he kind of describes this metaphor, So Michael Rappaport was in it. Sal Rubinek played Lee Donowitz. Great performance. James Gandolfini. Oh my goodness, the late James Gandolfini. I say late. He's been late for a while, but he's passed on a while ago. I still miss him. I think he would have. He would have been in some great movies, and I'm sure there would have been a Sopranos kind of spin-off thing or something. All right. I'm just reading down the list of people. I mean, it was funny. So the longest time I never knew until today I think I saw it, but Paul Ben Victor plays one of the Italian mob guys in the movie, and Paul Ben Victor was in Entourage, playing the guy in the guy who basically runs Warner Brothers or something and everything, and I absolutely loved him in that. I thought he was such a great kind of, like, in a way he becomes kind of a villain, but he. Kevin Corrigan was in it, playing Marvin. I don't remember that necessarily. I think he was also one of the Italian guys that comes in there. But Kevin Corrigan's been in a lot of movies too, so I mean, it's just had a huge cast. Like, I just read all of those casts. I'm gonna go into actual specific scenes I love and different things I've heard or whatever. I also want to mention this. I own this book, True Romance, the screenplay. Don't know why they decided to put, because I think they did like a bunch of them, because I know I got Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs has the cover of the thing on there. I don't know why they put Tarantino's face on the cover of the book instead of putting the poster of the book. Whatever. Anyway, if you ever read it, definitely give it a chance, because I mean, it's pretty lengthy. It's a different structure. So Tarantino originally wanted to do his normal structure for this movie had he directed it. Now Tony Scott decided he wasn't going to do it that way because it just didn't make any sense. For it, like, and especially for now it made sense in the script. Like, if you read the script, it totally makes sense. It plays out very well. And then the commentary track, which is one of the only commentary tracks I believe Tarantino has ever done. I think he did this, and I know he did a Reservoir Dogs commentary where he was on with a bunch of other people, and then he had done a commentary track for From Dusk Till Dawn, and I think that might have been it. He might have done like maybe no. Well, he's done commentary tracks. Those are for his own movies. He's done commentary tracks for like Hostel and I don't know if he did Hostel 2 or not, but I know he did a Hostel 1, which I want to re-listen to that commentary track because it's actually pretty decent from what I remember. The movie itself, Hostel, is pretty damn good, but he produced that, and so that's why he's on the commentary track. And he's usually very insightful and knows a lot of stuff. So like I kind of always, it's either him, Tarantino, or Kevin Smith that I love listening to commentaries for because they generally kind of bring something to the thing. Tarantino usually brings a lot of film knowledge, and Kevin Smith usually brings a lot of humor to whatever he's talking about, and sometimes film knowledge depending on what he knows from movies. So this is like my favorite Tarantino written movie. But the way that he had it, if he had done it, I mean, I think I would have still liked it. It would have been a completely different movie. The way that he had it set up, like, the scenes are all like, spread out or whatever, and so it's a little confusing. However, in the commentary, he kind of explains it. It's made to be confusing, so that you start going, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I'm interested to see see if they're right about this or whatever's going on. Then you see what actually happened, like the scene with the mafia guy and I think it was Vincent Kincotti, and which was Christopher Walken's character and Dennis Hopper's character. They have like this cliff, and they have this scene together where they're kind of talking. They have the Sicilian scene. But the way that was set up was he tells all this story about what happened, and then you see some of that story. Then they come back, and then, that stuff gets finished. Then you kind of, like, things start to get pieced together. They decided not to go that route because they wanted to do something, they wanted to do something different. They wanted to do it, like, they wanted to make it easier for somebody to understand what's going on, really. And I totally get that. Like, I would have probably wanted it more linear. Because I never would do that. Now, perfect for Quentin Tarantino. If you watch all his movies, they work that way. Pulp Fiction has different sections where it goes into different things, and I mean, you're not really confused at all, with that movie. It's very, very explanatory. I think Reservoir Dogs even does a little bit of that too, where they do flashbacks and, things, everything's all kind of jumbled up out, but it makes sense for the story. And you all of a sudden you start kind of getting to know everything that's going on. Natural Born Killers was more structured originally without going into the Mickey and Mallory thing as much, and more about like the news reporters and everything like that, and kind of follows them around more. And I've read it, and honestly, I'm not as, like, I didn't even buy that book. It's not great. I would rather get the Oliver Stone version, which is a lot better of a thing. Now, I'm not saying Quentin Tarantino was a bad writer, because he did a great job with writing it. It would have just been a different movie, and I wouldn't have, if Tarantino had done it the way that he wrote it, I don't think it would have been that great. However, he, I believe, like, for the longest time, he loved his script and was very upset that Oliver bought it and then just rewrote it, or whatever. And he gave him, like, story credit, so he didn't even get, like, credit for writing. And, I mean, I don't know the exact details of everything, so, but I do know that, like, and I'm, like, I'm so confused on the rules of the WGA, because from what I've understood, if you write an original script, say you write, if you write Natural Born Killers and you sell it to somebody, they have to give you credit even if they rewrite the whole damn thing, because that was your original script, It would have to be an and Oliver Stone. But he just got like story credits. I don't know if the WGA was different back then in the early 90s, or if it was, if that is technically was not, shouldn't have happened or not. But anyway, the point is, and if you look at it, you have Mickey and Mallory, you got Clarence and Alabama. Honestly, if I had to choose which characters like I would love the more, or whatever I'm more obsessed with, it's Clarence and Alabama. They are just, to me, they're more entertaining characters. That movie. Now I like both movies very much, but the True Romance is by far, like, bar none, one of my favorite written movies of his, or whatever. So, basically, if you don't know the story or whatever, I'm going to tell you the brief story. Is basically this, was it a Christian Slater, meets this girl. So Clarence meets Alabama. They fall in love. He realizes she's, she comes clean and says she's a hooker. He doesn't like the fact that she had the pimp that was pretty unreasonable, so he goes to deal with him, and then the guy attacks him. They get into a fight. He kills the pimp. He ends up taking the wrong suitcase, bringing it back. It's a suitcase full of cocaine instead of her clothes, which is what he came there for. So he decides that they're going to go to Hollywood and sell it. But before then, he goes and tells his dad, so that his to find out if they're in the clear for everything. So his dad tells him, because his dad was an ex-cop, tells him that he's fine. It's most likely just a drug thing gone bad. However, when he escaped, he left the license in the hands of one of the dead guys, so they knew who the person was that stole their narcotics. So they go after the dad, to find out. The dad is an ass to them, so they kill the dad. They end up finding out where he is. They go to Hollywood, and then just a lot of shit happens, including the ending has this amazing Mexican standoff. I'm sorry if that's offensive or anything. That's just a phrase. It's not me saying anything to try to offend you. I mean, it's probably not appropriate these days to say that phrase, but sorry. But yeah, so they have that standoff at the end, and everybody ends up and if you, okay, so that goes to another thing. Tarantino loves standoffs. Reservoir Dogs has a great standoff with all of them shooting each other at the end. And it's usually at the ends of the movies that he does it. He just has these standoffs at the end, all of which you never know, like, where it's going to go. If you're, like, new and fresh to the movie, you don't know anything about it, you have no idea where it's going to go. It could go one way or another. And with Tarantino, he doesn't, it's never just a happy ending, Pulp Fiction, no bloodshed was done on the standoff. And in I want to say there was a standoff in Glorious Bastards, I want to say too. But he likes that stuff. He likes having those scenes where the people are pointing guns at each other and you just don't know who's going to win. I was very happy when Dick left or won at the end. He not won, but he had survived. He ran off and everything, because Dick Ritchie was one of my favorite characters in the thing, and I was like so sad that he got wrapped up in this. I mean, all he was a friend. He should not have been there. There was no point for Dick being there, at all. He should have been like, yeah, well, I got a 7:00 call tomorrow to meet with Captain Kirk. I don't need to be here. You don't need me. You've met with the guy. Yeah. But he went. Shit happens. He escaped. Elliot didn't. That's Bronson Pinchot's character. And I think I'm saying the name right. I loved him, but he was just so goofy and so wacky and fun. It was really weird. So he worked on this with Tony Scott, and he had worked on Beverly Hills Cop, and then was not in Beverly Hills Cop 2, which was directed by Tony Scott. So I was just always confused. Like, I thought he got cast because they liked him. I guess he got cast because he's just a great actor. Val Kilmer playing Elvis. I mean, how could you not love that? I mean, just amazing. Brad Pitt playing Floyd. So Floyd, they had to specify this, apparently. There's Floyd, Dick's roommate, and then there's Floyd, I want to say D or something. There's another Floyd D. So Floyd D is in the scene with Samuel L. Jackson, and they're talking about eating pussy, and he's telling, I don't want to eat pussy, blah, 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 blah. Floyd, so there's a Floyd D, is a black guy named Floyd, and then there was Brad Pitt, who played Floyd. It's the first time I've ever, and I never noticed it before. It was the first time that I noticed that there was two Floyds in the movie. I don't know why he did that. Now, it totally makes sense, sort of, because, in real life, there's going to be more than one person who has the same name, right? It's never going to be, in the world, you're going to run into people who don't have the same name. But Floyd is a little bit of a, name. If you were Jonathan, that's more of a popular name. Floyd is not as John, even more popular. Mark, whatever, right? All these different names, very much very more popular. However, Floyd isn't, and it's just a little weird that he did that. I don't know if that was an accident when he was writing it, because generally speaking, when you write a film script, you typically try to have the characters have different names. That way you can specify them, when you see them, you know what I mean? So you're not confused as to, oh, this is Floyd and this is Floyd, right? However, it sort of worked for the movie because those Floyds never met, nor did they have any connections to each other, right? Except for Drexel and Floyd knowing each other. Floyd never met Clarence, so when Clarence went over there, it was fine. So, whatever. Just a little thing I noticed for the first time, and I was like, weird. Like I said, I just don't, because I was like, he just called that guy Floyd. Isn't Floyd the name of the guy on the couch, who's the stoner, is just sitting on this kind of couch and just chilling, and okay, so it said that Roger Avery was uncredited for writing. I don't know what scenes he wrote or what he contributed with. I know he did a good amount of contributing to the stories of Pulp Fiction or something. Roger Avery, if you know anything about him, I guess he got famous because he worked with Tarantino in the video store, and both of them wanted to be writers, so they kind of worked together a little bit. But Tarantino had written, had written another movie beforehand called My Babysitter's Birthday. Not My Babysitter's Birthday. My Best Friend's Birthday. Good God, My Babysitter's Birthday. That sounds like a porn. So my Best Friend's Birthday was written. It was the first feature film that Tarantino ever wrote, and he I think he co-wrote it, and he was directing it, or maybe he didn't write it. I'm not sure. Actually, well, I'm sure he wrote it because there was Clarence, which Quentin Tarantino was playing, who liked Elvis. So it was right before True Romance or so. Maybe he didn't think he could get True Romance done, so he tried to make this movie. A lot of times, writers will have scripts for years before they'll ever get them sold, I've noticed. So they might have a movie that's sitting on their shelf for I say shelf now, it's just their desktop or something, but in their computer. But now, they have their movies in the shelves for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. Then somebody will be like, what do you got? And they'll be like, I got this script. And they'll be like, perfect. Let's make that. So it just depends. But yeah, I don't know how much Roger Avery actually contributed to the actual script, but it says uncredited on IMDb. So I don't know. A lot of times people like add things to IMDb that's actually inaccurate, and they don't have like somebody who's they don't have a fact checker for IMDb. So anybody can write anything on IMDb. It's kind of sad and scary because anybody can put like something wrong about somebody, and it takes like forever for somebody to get it off there. I'm not talking from experience, but I'm just saying some people. Okay. Okay. This is what it says about that. I'm gonna read you this. I was looking up the thing about Roger Avery. It says the genesis of this film began with a 50-page script by Roger Avery titled The Open Road, which I always remember Tarantino talking about The Open Road in the commentary as something he wrote as like he got to like a huge amount, like it was like a novel, or whatever. Avery described the plot as being about an odd couple relationship between an uptight businessman and an out-of-control hitchhiker who travels into a hellish Midwestern town together. When he had trouble finishing it, he asked his friend and fellow video archive clerk Quentin Tarantino to give it a shot. After several weeks, Quentin handed him over 500 500 handwritten pages of what Avery described as the Bible of pulp culture. Roger typed and edited the behemoth, working with Quentin on further story ideas. According to a Film Threat article from 1994, the final script was a combination of this movie and Natural Born Killers. Reportedly, it followed Quentin's only original Natural Born Killers script until after the prison riot. After escaping, Mickey and Mallory decided to find and kill the screenwriter who wrote the glitzy Hollywood movie about their exploits. The writer goes on the run, and True Romance was the movie he writes while trying to evade the two psychotic killers. It was told in trademark Tarantino chapter fashion out of chronological order. When it became obvious that the miniseries length script would never sell, they split the two stories into separate movies. Okay. Interesting, actually. That is fairly interesting. I never looked at IMDb for that. Interesting. So, The Open Road was a script that he had, like this huge script that he said was like a mini series and just was never going to be able to do it. But he was like, but after that, he got to like understand how to make a script, like he could do a script because his idea and that's coming from me as a screenwriter too. And I'm not saying like I'm a fantastic screenwriter or anything. Like I'm not, I'm not going to be winning awards right now for a lot of my things yet. And maybe soon, who knows. But the thing is, here's what he said about it was that the first things he could only get up to page 30 and he would stop. And I had that exact same problem. I still sometimes have that same exact problem. I'll get to page 30 and then I'll just stop because I'll have no idea where I want to go with it. I don't have it mapped out. Generally, I don't map things out. I kind of let things just kind of come naturally into the story, kind of like start writing and then kind of let the characters kind of do their thing. And I've heard Tarantino does a lot of that. Now, you might also plan a little bit or whatever of what he wants, especially if there's specific things he wants to make sure that are in there. But all in all, he's generally just kind of winging it because he enjoys the journey that these characters go on, right? And I love that too. Like, I love creating these characters, kind of bringing the journey, and then all of a sudden the universe and the world kind of just evolves. So he has this, he kept getting to 30. Eventually he did The Open Road, which got him to page 500. Mainly probably because Roger Avery, he didn't mention it, but Roger Avery had written like 50 pages or whatever. So kind of that jump started getting him over the 30 hump so he could go and kind of continue. But then he just kept writing, and everything. And I'm not like that. Like, I can't spend hours and hours and hours, typing up like a 300-page script or something. You know what I mean? I couldn't do a 4-hour long movie, 5-hour long movie. Just it would bore me after a while. You know, I'm not an epic kind of guy exactly. I do like series, you know, writing series and everything, but he, on the other hand, loved doing he loves novels. He loves reading novels. He loves writing scripts that feel like novels. Everything has like a chapter, you know, mark, you know, these days especially chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 18, you know, right? And that's interesting to me. Like, I like that. Like, I like feeling like, you know, I'm sort of seeing a book come to life, you know. He starts about how after his 10th film, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his 9th film, and so sad. Like, I almost felt like that should have been his 10th, because it felt like a movie he should end on, you know. So I'm hoping this next one's even better, you know. But I'm not a huge fan of Django, and I'm not a huge fan of Hateful Eight, or I'm this and that on Inglourious Bastards. It has its moments, but overall I feel like a lot of them are just too long for me. True Romance is perfect timing. It's like 2 hours long, but doesn't even feel like that. Like, the pacing goes by like that. If he had done it, because his script was like 130 pages, and if you know that like one page usually was out to 1 minute, I don't know how it is on this, you know, this size. But generally speaking, you know, one page equals 1 minute. So it's probably 130. It would have been 130 minutes, and he cut out a lot of, you know, Tony Scott had to cut out a lot of stuff because there was a lot of scenes. Let me read you a scene that he would have had that would have been in there, but was sort of in there or whatever, was in you know, there's an actual scene in it. There's a where is it? Was it when they meet? Yeah, it's when they meet. So yeah, or no, even better, this scene with Drexel and Clarence. He goes, "I'm not eating because I'm not hungry. I'm not sitting because I'm not staying. I'm not looking at the movie because I saw it 7 years ago. It's The Mac with Max Julien, Carol Speed, and Richard Pryor. Written by Bobby Poole, directed by Michael Campus, and released by Cinerama Releasing Company in 1984. I'm not scared of you, I just don't like you. And this envelope is some payoff money. Alabama's moving on to some greener pastures. We're not negotiating. I do not like to barter. I don't like to dicker. I never have fun in Tijuana. That price is non-negotiable. What's in that envelope is for my peace of mind, and my peace of mind is worth that much. Not 1 penny more, not one more penny." So, yeah. It's a little long, you know. So I can see why they cut stuff that like feels like filler. You know, this stuff about the writer and the Cinerama, like that's Tarantino. Like, he would say that, you know, like, and he's actually said sort of like Clarence is sort of him, you know, like this is like the most personal story he's ever done, and so it's like, you know, in a way, somebody making a fictional biography of him, you know, and everything, and directed by Tony Scott. So it's got beautiful music by Hans Zimmer. It's got the sunsets are just beautiful. The cinematography is amazing. The lighting, the smoky atmospheres, everything is just amazing in that movie. So this movie, by far one of my favorite films of all time. I'm glad it's on Film Freaks. I don't think Paul is a huge fan of it as much as I am. I don't know why. Some people really, really, really love it. Some people don't. And you know what? If you don't like it, that's fine. I'm not, you know, we all have different tastes. There are some movies that I hate that everybody else loves. and so on and so forth. So we can all agree to disagree that there are some films that some people like, some people don't. But it's really funny because I don't think yet we've had on Film Freaks had a Tarantino movie. So I figured this would be the best because it's not necessarily Tarantino. And yeah, for Film Freaks, I could have picked Pulp Fiction. I could have picked Reservoir Dogs. Could have picked any of those films. I decided not to do those ones because those are way too popular. True Romance is not... I feel like it's underappreciated. Like, it doesn't get... Like, people love it, but nobody talks about it as much. They talk about Pulp Fiction when they discuss him. They talk about all the newer stuff that he's doing, which is wonderful. Like, hey, like, more power to him. And this is in the heyday of, like, when people were starting to kind of get to know Tarantino. So I'm a huge fan of his. I wish that Video Archive still existed. I would definitely go rent movies from Video Archives if it were still around. I don't think it is. I've been to since I moved here. Actually, the weekend that I went here to visit, and I went to Burbank to visit. I was staying in Burbank, and a friend of mine, my friend Lila, picked me up, go hang out, and show me around LA. And as we're driving around, I see the Safari Inn, and I'm like, I remember that from True Romance. We gotta stop there. So we stopped in, and we hung out. We got to meet the people that were like behind the desk. They talk about that there's like a festival that they have where they show True Romance, and they have a lot of people come over, and everything is just amazing just to think about. Like, I hope that once this whole pandemic is over with, they still have that, and I'm able to go. I'll definitely bring Lila and bring whoever else wants to go. We'll go watch True Romance at the hotel, the Safari Inn. I want to check in one day there because people have said that they stayed there. Like, friends of mine have said that they stayed there, but and never thought about. They never knew like it was like so famous or anything. And I was almost going to stay there, but it would just cost me way too much money, and I got a better deal at an Airbnb. I should have done like all the days there, then one day at the Safari, and that just would have been cool. But anyway, point is, at the top, there is the place, the area where they're running out of it, because the inside of the hotel, where James Gandolfini has that big scene with her, where he's attacking her, it's actually a set, right? So movie magic, when they're outside, then all of a sudden she opens up the door and she goes into, they cut to inside a set and everything. And, you would never know. Like, had I not told you guys that and you guys didn't know, you never would have thought about that, because that's just not, it's not a big deal. You're so used to probably that. But yeah, this is by far one of my favorite films of all time, and it's just because I feel like it's just interesting characters. The violence isn't like the centerpiece of everything. Like, there is violence, but it's not too violent. And when people always ask Tarantino, I've heard this, when people ask Tarantino if he'll ever write a love story, he says he's done one. It's called True Romance. And they're like, oh, one without violence. And he says, why does it not have to have violence? Like, violence happens, shit like this. I mean, I think would he ever write something like Love Story or something with that kind of dramatic thing? Probably not, just because it's not him, He knows who he is. And to me, that's an amazing thing. Like, no matter what you say about Tarantino, like, you might not be a fan of his newer stuff, you might only like his older stuff, whatever. He knows who he is. He knows what he likes, he knows what he wants to do, and he does it. Thankfully, he has people who give him carte blanche that he can do whatever he wants. He has final say, final cut on everything. He's just able to go. He's like the Coen brothers. He's able to go make his movie. Woody Allen, all those guys make their own movie. They go out and they do it, do whatever they want. Amazing. And it all started with this movie in a way. Like, this movie and Reservoir Dogs and and then obviously Pulp Fiction and Natural Born Killers, all those just started him off to become who he is and kind of find himself. But he found himself pretty early on. I mean, True Romance is Tarantino being himself. This is what he wants to do. Like I said, it's written in the same sort of text of how he likes to do things. Everything's sort of chapter based. It doesn't say chapter 1, chapter 2, or whatever, but it does say title card, and it has like Motor City. Oh, all of this is going to take place in Detroit. All of this is going to take place in Hollywood. All this is going to take place in wherever else he's at. You know, it's just an amazing thing. So I really, really love this movie, and I hope that if you've seen it, then you guys feel the same way that I do. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. Like, it's free on IMDb TV. So if you go on Amazon and you look up True Romance, it'll say it's free with a with ads. And I watched it, you know, and with ads, and it just felt like you were watching the like cable version, except uncut. It was kind of cool because like every cut that they did before they like would go to the commercials, I was like, man, that would be the exact same cut that would happen in a cable if this were shown on cable, you know, TV. Obviously, if it were shown on cable TV, all the violence and the and things like that would be, in the language would be cut down severely. But you know what? Literally, this is probably, other than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, probably one of his least violent movies. And the violence doesn't feel violent at all. The violence feels like any other action movie, you know, or whatever. Like, it doesn't. I always get mad when people talk about how, you know, his violence are too grim and nasty or something. Like, no. Like, most of it's survival, you know, if you look at it. The only, like, I guess, grim scene is Christopher Walken shooting Dennis Hopper for his... I don't want to... You know the scene. If you've seen the movie, you know the scene. If not, watch the movie, you'll see the scene. It's amazing. I don't want to say it. This is YouTube. I don't want a lot of people being offended by anything I say. But yeah, there's a really great scene, and that violence is like sort of Dennis Hopper knows what's coming. You know, he knows what he's about to say. He asks for a Chesterfield cigarette, and he goes on. He tells Vincent everything, and then Vincent's just like, wow, I love this guy. You know, he's got balls, you know, to say this stuff right in front of me. And then he shoots him, you know, of course, because, you know, he's not going to let a guy like that talk to him like that. And you know what? Once again, did not feel like grim, you know. It felt like, you know what? It was sort of, you know, he kind of knew what was happening, and he was like, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. And I thought, to me, honestly, that was an amazing thing. So I absolutely love this movie. Like, I am smiling ear to ear thinking about it, because it's still a great movie. Like, I don't know. I really enjoy it. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, go see it. If you have and you love it, or you don't love it. If you don't love it, I mean, it's fine. Like I said, I heard a lot of people say, you know, I've seen on Facebook or something, somebody go, I just watched True Romance, and I didn't like it, you know, or something. People don't like Princess Bride, which I think is like one of the most beautifully done movies ever in my life too. So, you know, I'm always surprised when people say that, but yeah, I don't get that either. But, you know, everybody has their own taste. You know what I mean? And I don't feel like, even though this is a Hollywood movie, it doesn't feel like a Hollywood movie. It's got stars, huge stars, and it just doesn't feel like a Hollywood movie. I remember when my parents rented it, this is like 93, 94 or something, I was a kid. I was like literally a little kid. My parents said I could watch it with them, right? So we started watching it, and I get kind of bored. You know, I'm a little kid. I'm not interested in any of the the stuff that's going on here. And then they get to like the sex scene, and I'm like, I don't want to see this stuff. I'm like a little kid. Like, of course I don't want to see that stuff. Like, I'm like, so I leave, and then after I left, the violence happened, and I was so disappointed that I left before like all the good stuff happened, but to a kid. But I wouldn't have dunked the movie. I watched it years later when I started to really appreciate Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and all that stuff. I wasn't ever really that much of a sheltered kid. I just, like, my parents always made sure I didn't watch anything that was violence for the violence sake. True Romance was not violence for violence sake. It was violence for survival's sake most of the time. Like, if not almost all of it. Anytime that anybody was pretty much fighting or whatever, like James Gandolfini or Gary Oldman or the standoff at the end, it's all everybody trying to survive that particular scene. So the only ones that are the villains, the bad villains, the ones that are like, oh, junk. You know, he had Drexel on him. Drexel was, murdered people for, we didn't know. We never found out why Drexel killed both Floyd and I forgot what his other name was. Samuel L. Jackson's character's name was, but we don't know why those guys did it, other than this guy's a person you don't want to mess with, and everything. And he and Tony Scott directed that perfectly, where he put the scene where she's telling him about him, and he's like asking who's Drexel, and she says, he's nothing to worry about. Then you see that scene, and you're worried, after that. You're like, oh, crap, this guy just literally murdered these guys. I don't want him on, I wouldn't want him coming after me. Then later, when you see him, and they fight and everything, you think Gary Oldman's got the upper hand here. But you probably forget that, Clarence had that gun with him and everything. And so Clarence shoots Drexel, and you think, okay, Drexel's out of the way. That's okay. He's nothing to be worried about. Then you see Vincent Kincotti, and then you realize, oh, there's another guy that's like just as, scary. You know what I mean? So there was a ton of kind of bait and switches there that made you go, okay, now I'm worried. And I love that. Like, survival, he's trying. All Clarence wants to do is sell his drugs, make that money, and go live peacefully somewhere. And they end up being able to do that at the end, which in Tarantino's script, Clarence dies. I kind of, and I agree with Tony Scott with his decision of having Clarence live, because like, we don't, like, that's a downer, nobody wants to see that. I understand, like, it could happen or whatever, but like, everybody was rooting for Clarence to win. Everybody loves Clarence. He's such a likable, nice guy. In the beginning of the movie, he's hitting on this girl who looked older than him. Probably wasn't, but looked older than him. I thought at first she was a hooker when I first watched it. And then later we meet the call girl. But she's like talking to him and everything, and about fucking Elvis, And like, you're just like, this guy's just a normal, average guy. He's he works at a comic book store, but he's not like the manager or anything. He's just a normal guy, just trying to live in L.A. You know what I mean? Not L.A., Detroit. He's trying to live in Detroit. He goes to L.A. later. Funny, a lot of that stuff was filmed in L.A. For Detroit, which is crazy, but I mean, understandable considering, budget and money. But yeah, I mean, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, this movie didn't feel like a normal Hollywood movie, but was. It was definitely a Hollywood movie. Didn't feel like it. It felt like something gritty, and definitely, one of my favorites. So, anyway, I decided to do this as Film Freaks because I love it. It's one of my favorites, and I was actually thinking, like, I had other ones that I thought of, and I might do them later, but this is the one that just, like, it was it. Like, this is the one I wanted to definitely do. So, thank you guys for checking this out. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up if you did. And subscribe. Also, check our indiefilmcafe.reviews website, as well as check out our podcast on Podbean, Indie Film Cafe. There's a lot of great reviews on there for kind of fun B movies that we review. So, hope you guys enjoy this, and check back next month. Paul will have a Film Freaks, so I'm excited for that. All right, have a good one. Bye.